Hi, and welcome to Meet the Candidates 2018, a voter education program sponsored by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. My name is Angie Whitcomb, and I'm joined today by school board candidate Kristi Peterson. Kristi, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you start by giving our viewers at home a brief overview of your background and why you're running for school board.
Okay. My name is Kristi Peterson. I have been a resident of Shakopee since 1999. I married my husband Sean, and I have a 13-year-old son who is an 8th grader at East Middle School currently in Shakopee.
Great.
I have been involved in a lot of different school activities and different associations and leadership roles over the past 25 years. Mm-hmm. Most recently, I was part of the Excellence in Operations Committee as a community member to help with defining really what was going to go on the last referendum that was approved by the school district. And it was at that time that I found a real passion for education. Mm-hmm. I became very, very interested in learning more about how education works. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot during that time about when you're building something that the state of Minnesota has requirements. Mm-hmm. And so I just became very interested in it. And at that same time, I became very involved with the Shakopee Endowment, Education Endowment Foundation. Okay. And I serve on the board and have been on that for 3 or 4 years.
Great.
And have found that to be a very supportive way for teachers to bring in some unique projects into the district that may not fit into the district budget.
Sure.
And it's been very rewarding, let's put it that way.
Good.
So, and outside of that, I have been very involved in other activities. Mm-hmm. I've been past president of the Shakopee Girls Fast Pitch Softball Association. Okay. I was also communications director for that organization as well. I've been president of our LPGA Amateur Golf Association here in the Twin Cities. So I've been elected by membership into these roles. And so I feel very confident that running for school board, I would do a great job representing the community of Shakopee. Great.
Well, we're glad you're here with us today. So to dive right in, school board members serve their districts using a model known as board governance, whereby the superintendent and district staff and administration manage the day-to-day, and the board governs. Please explain the importance of those two very distinct roles and how they differ from one another.
Sure. Well, the school board and the superintendent and the district administration, they work hand in hand, but they do have very distinct roles, and each one is real separate from each other. So the school board actually, they set policies and they set the vision for the education in the district. What do we want this to look like, not only this year, but 3, 4, 10 years down the road? Therefore, the superintendent and the district administration, they are to adhere to those policies. And kind of execute it and make it happen within the district. One of the things that the school board's role is they have one employee, and that's the superintendent. And they really make sure that the superintendent adheres to all the rules, all the governances, regulations that a school district must comply with, including state aid, how money is spent within the district, district finances, which is a huge topic here in Shakopee. So the school board plays a very important role, but it's also very important that both the school board and the superintendent have a great working relationship together, and they both are on the same page with the same vision, the same goal, to make sure that we offer the best education that we can to the students here in the Shakopee community. But one thing that's unique about school board members is school board members must come in and serve the community with a holistic view. School board members who are elected can't come to the board or shouldn't come to the board with a narrow philosophy. They can't, or they shouldn't come to the board with one vision in mind, one perspective. They really need to have an open mind and be very transparent with one another and trust one another and respect each other's opinions. And that's, to me, that is one of the top characteristics of somebody that the community needs to elect to a board. Somebody that's going to look at the entire education system here in Shakopee and make sure that on every level that we are doing the best that we possibly can for the education, not only of our students, but of our community education programs, as well as supporting our teachers, because teachers and our students, they're our number one priority. And they need to be our number one priority going forward. So as a school board, that's you need to really work together with the superintendent, and I really felt that the school board recently worked extremely well with Gary Anger. And he brought such a fresh perspective into our district that was needed, even in a very short period of time that he was with us. So
I agree. So diving in or carrying on with that financial message you delivered there, what ideas do you have for rebuilding the district's fund balance? What should that fund balance be, and what's a good timeline for achieving that goal?
Sure. Well, the fund balance is a little bit of a complicated puzzle, is the way I look at it, because the fund balance is not necessarily something that is easy to fix, and it's not easy to build. It's like my savings account and your savings account. It's not something that you're able to build overnight. I anticipate that it's going to take many years to build that back up. In June of 2016, the Shakopee School Board adopted a policy that said that they wanted to strive to maintain an 8 to 12% unassigned fund balance for the district. And we all know that has not happened for various reasons, some of them beyond anybody's real control on that board. We're below that, and it's very concerning moving forward. On the flip side of that, what is an optimum fund balance, and what are some of the factors that play into having a strong fund balance? Well, one of them is your local economy. What's going on here in the city of Shakopee? Who's building? What kind of residential growth are we seeing? And on top of that, then comes the enrollment. Are we growing? The more students we have, yes, we receive additional dollars from the state of Minnesota, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our cost of doing business, our cost of having an education in the district is going to remain the same. So really looking at those projections, looking at our debt issuance. That is a significant part of having a fund balance that can be consistent. And then just looking at other factors, leases within the district, district office space. What are we going to do with some of our existing buildings? So there's a lot of variables into that.
Sure.
The other thing on top of the fund balance is that our cost of doing business does not stay at the same rate as what the district receives in state aid from the state of Minnesota. So regardless of if we had the $10 million back that the district doesn't have anymore, that as a result of the Rod Thompson superintendent era, without having the appropriate revenue coming into the district, that money would slowly be disappearing without the right operating costs or revenue coming in for the operating cost within the district.
Sure.
So I really feel that it's going to take some time, to build $10 million back up into our unassigned general fund. It's going to take a long time, but it's being very diligent. It's being very good stewards of the money that we receive from the taxpayers here in Shakopee, and it's staying within a budget. I make so much money a week, that's what I can spend. And it's the same way in the school district. If you set a budget, you need to maintain it, and you need to stay within your means of what you're provided. Now, we all know that there's ebb and flow. You go over in one area, so that means that where are we going to underspend in other areas that we could potentially use those dollars. But to me, that is one of the significant things to maintain or to start growing the fund balances. We can't overspend.
Good point. Speaking of spending, Shakopee's approved referendum spend is $724 per student. The state average is $1,297. Comparable districts are as high as $1,700. Are we spending enough per student? And what would be your recommended per student allowance?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I want to explain is that $724, because I'm not sure that a lot of residents in the community know what that $724 really consists of.
Exactly.
So that $724 consists of two things. One being there's a $300 maximum that the school board can approve without going to the taxpayers to ask for their vote on it. And then there's the additional dollars, the $424, would then come from the state of Minnesota.
Okay.
And that's what they call like an adjustment fee or an adjustment rate. And that money is earmarked or allocated to districts that may have a little bit of a financial strain.
Okay.
And it helps prepare, or it doesn't help prepare, but it keeps districts from going broke.
Sure.
So it gives districts a little bit of cash flow without having to go back to the residents of the community and ask for more money.
Okay.
Does Shakopee spend enough on the students? I believe that we should be somewhere between that state average and comparable districts. So a comparable district would be somebody like a Burnsville. It's not necessarily size, but it's also the diversity, the mix of diversity, the reduced lunches, the free lunches that are within the district. So you can't necessarily look at population or number of students as a whole. So I can't tell you that it should be, $1,482, but it needs to be somewhere. We should, at a minimum, be at where the state average is. It's a difficult thing because we had an operating levy that failed, or not failed, but it expired. And that brought in some significant dollars into the district per pupil to help fund education. All right. So backing up, an operating levy is everything that's inside the brick and mortar.
Sure.
So the levy that was passed recently for the expansion of the high school and some of the other facility improvements has nothing to do with the operating levy. So the operating levy would be the teachers, the electricity, everything within inside of the building. So I want to make that clear.
Sure.
Exactly. One of the things that I found very interesting when I was doing research, when I was deciding to run for school board, was that 1/3 of the districts in 2017 in the state of Minnesota had an operating levy on their ballot for the communities to approve.
Interesting.
That's significant when there's just a little over 300 school districts in the state of Minnesota and 1/3 of them had operating levies. That really brought up a red flag to me because we know that the state of Minnesota does not provide us the funding to keep up with the inflation, the cost of doing business, which I had stated previously. But here in the metro area, 80% of those operating levies were approved in 2017. The outstate area, it was less than 80%. It was significantly less. So there's an interesting mix there that I think will be significantly impacted by one major thing that could be of positive or negative for our district coming up is that we're going to elect a new governor and we're going to elect a new legislative members. And depending on their stance on education, it could significantly impact every school district in the state, not just Shakopee. It could be positive, which is what I would hope for, but it could also be negative. And we could see a reduce in per pupil funding from the state of Minnesota. So taking that into consideration as well, we really need to look at what do we need to do to increase that spending per pupil? Because we are operating on bare minimum right now, bare bones. Our schools are overcrowded. Even though we've just opened an awesome facility with the academies and the expanded high school, we need to keep that momentum going. And I'm not one to raise taxes. My taxes have gone up significantly since 1999 here in Shakopee, but all for a good reason of supporting the education.
Sure.
But I really believe there is going to come a time in the very near future that we're going to have to, as a district, whether I'm on the school board or not, go out for an operating levy. I don't unless the state changes their funding rate, I don't see another way around that.
Okay.
And it's going to be very difficult to get because of some of the issues that the district's gone through in the last couple of years. It's not going to be impossible, but it's going to be a harder sell into the community.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of challenges when it comes to the per pupil. There are a lot of variables, but I really think that we are not spending enough, and I would like to see us spend more. How we get that money, yet to be determined based on a lot of different things that could impact the district.
Sure, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
So, let me ask you this. What is your view of the Shakopee, the Academies of Shakopee model, and how, if elected, will you ensure its success?
I'm a very strong supporter of the academies. I heard about the academy format as we were working on the referendum, so that was something that was somewhat going simultaneously alongside of the building of the school. So the school was not built for the academies. The academy format was an education program that Nancy Thule, who's our director of learning in the district, really kind of took the bull by the horn and started to run with it to see is this feasible here in Shakopee. Anybody that's toured that facility has to be extremely impressed. I was impressed. Being on the design committee and sitting for hours, you know, Wednesday night for 2 hours for many, many months, almost playing a jigsaw puzzle of, okay, now this is going to fit here, and no, we can't do that because then we have to take out parking. It's just, it's incredible. So I'm a strong supporter of it. It's an authentic learning model. And I believe that in today's world, the way that we learn is so much different than the way people learned even 25, 30 years ago. And I think people have a hard time grasping that. But when you think about how you learn today, what's the first thing you do, most people, when they want to learn how to fix something or how to remember how to do something? They go to the internet. It's digital.
Yeah.
And so that's where our education is moving, is down that path. And then when you think about how fast digital learning has been brought into our environment, our education system is still light years behind where we should be. So this is a significant step from the traditional learning, but it's still, we could be way further ahead.
Sure.
The positive thing is with the academies is that it really groups kids together that have similar interests. And when you are in a group of students or in a larger area where you're all kind of working toward the same common goal and trying to figure out if I like this or not, I think the success rate is going to be much higher. The collaboration, learning the ability to work in a group is going to be significantly higher because you have that common interest. You know, the other thing with the academies that I really like about it is it's flexible. A lot of people don't think that it is flexible.
It's very flexible.
But it is. If you are interested in nursing and you get into it and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's totally not me, I can't do that for a career, then you can change to something else. Because in every academy, you still have the core classes. You still have the math, the English, the science, the social studies. You will still meet all the graduation requirements. And basically what the academies are doing are giving you your choice of electives and trying out a career before you actually enter college. I kind of call it the internship within high school
perspective.
instead of when you get into the real world of college. You're getting that hands-on practical experience thanks to our wonderful community partners that you wouldn't necessarily get until you're maybe a junior or senior in college. So this is a real win for the community, and I will do everything that I can to ensure that it's very successful if I'm elected to the board. One of the things that will ensure success will be the communication with the community. Not just here's what's great, but here's some things that aren't working, and here's how we're going to fix it.
Or
and here's how we're
input.
right, and here's how we're going to make it better. I think that that's really, really important. So it's, and just continue the monitoring of the success of the programs and even the students and getting their feedback. Success is not going to be defined in 1 year. I think it's going to take 4, maybe even 8 years to see a cycle of kids graduate and go through the academies and see how it prepared them for college.
Sure.
And
Or a trade.
or a trade. Exactly.
So if you were a student instead of a school board candidate, which academy would you choose and why?
I would probably pick this was a tough question because I had two of them in mind, but I think I would lean more toward the business and entrepreneurship academy. Being in the business world for 25 years, I have found that I would have liked to have had more experience working with financials, balance sheets, understanding how a business actually runs. And I think that the students within that academy, and if I was in that academy, I would gain those experiences and have that knowledge before I even entered the workforce. And it also helps from a personal finance standpoint as well. So I think there's a lot of life lessons and authentic learning that these students are going to get that we wish that we would have had.
Sure. So our final question is, what has the existing school board done well? And if elected, what work would you be excited to continue?
Sure. I think the school board has done a good job. I know that they don't necessarily get a lot of credit because of some things that the school board or the school district have gone through over the last couple of years. It's been very complex issues. And I'm not saying that they are to blame, or there are definitely things that maybe they should have caught with the financial situation, but I think overall they've done a really good job steering the ship, keeping us in moving forward and keeping that education momentum going forward. There's out of darkness comes a lot of learning. And I think, and through all of this, I think the board came out as better people. I think they've done a good job of implementing and staying on the course of the academies. And seeing that building open had to have been something that they just were in awe of. I think that they have done a good job of wrapping their arms around the financials and kind of bringing some stability and even some growth to that fund balance, because from what I understand, there's definitely some changes to the good from that perspective. And I think one of the things that the school board brought to Shakopee was Gary Anger. Even though the community had input, the school board was the final decision maker. And in 10 short months, he, along with the school board, really started to heal the community, because there was a lot of hurt feelings. And I was one of them. I was upset. But one of the things that, with Gary's positive attitude and enthusiasm that he brought into the classroom and into the community, it made me excited as a parent and as a community member. And that's one of the things that I want to bring into our school board, is I want to bring that passion, I want to bring that enthusiasm that he had. There will never be another superintendent like him. But I think that we could all learn from that. And I just gives me chills sometimes thinking about what he did in such a short period of time, and even from a professional standpoint, thinking about what can I learn from this? What can I learn from him and the impact that he made?
Good.
So.
Well, Kristi, thank you for joining us here today. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our viewers at home to help them decide on November 6th?
First of all, I'd like to thank the Shakopee Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to visit with you today and to present the platforms and issues that I'm most passionate about and why I'm running for school board. I encourage everybody to get out and vote on November 6th. It is something that's extremely important. It's your right to express your opinion, whether you can be at the poll on November 6th or by filing the absentee vote. Please get out and vote, regardless of what candidate that you are supporting in our elections. I would hope that I could gain your support and your vote on November 6th. I'm very passionate about the education in the school district, and I want to continue the momentum that's currently going on in the school district. There are a lot of good things that are happening, and it should make the community here in Shakopee very proud of the education and the students that are coming out of our district. So I would love to have your vote. Please vote for Kristi Peterson on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristi. We're glad you could join us today. The views expressed in these interviews are those of the candidates, not necessarily of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. The Chamber does not endorse any candidates, but seeks to provide you, the citizens of Shakopee, and the voters of Shakopee with the information you need to cast an informed ballot on November 6th.